understandable.
Yep.
Call this meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Remind everybody about their cell phones and electronic devices. If you could turn them to mute, we would appreciate it. Becky is joining us virtually tonight for anybody that's watching. So she is on the computer over here. Any deletions, additions to the agenda?
Madam Chair, we do have a few. Under D, personnel, item number 6, approve 21-23 at Minnesota Pillager Master Contract. That item is going to be deleted and moved to the June meeting. Additional item number 9, approve 21-23 contract for Director of Teaching and Learning. That's an action item. And then under other, item number 5, guideline decision for district summer programming for COVID-19 restrictions. We'll have a discussion there, and then I'm going to say an action for how we're going to, I'd like some direction from the board with, I guess, a recommendation after seeing some stuff from MD today.
Okay.
An action on that.
Can I get a motion to accept the agenda with the corrections?
I'll make that motion.
A second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Do we have to do a roll call?
Yeah, roll call.
The way we do it at Sourcewell is we just do it the way we've always done it and give a pause. So if anybody has an objection, then they have time to give the objection. But we can do a roll call if you'd like. It's up to you.
Mike, I think you looked that up last time and we had to do roll call.
Did we not do that?
Yeah, that's what I remember
Okay,
last time.
Then we can do it that way.
I think we
I'm
did
just not
roll
used
call
to it
when we
anymore.
had somebody
Yeah.
join us.
Yes. We'll do a roll call.
Say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Becky?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, visitor comments? Thank you for coming.
Quiet visitors.
Yes. The consent agenda, we have the meeting minutes of the April 19th regular meeting, monthly cash flow, including investments, monthly bills paid to the activities account, donations. We'd like to thank the Pillager Fire Department, the Lincoln Area Business Association, and Todd Wright and Country Financial for their donations, greatly appreciated. And the personnel summary sheet is enclosed. Can I get a motion on that?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? All right, roll call. Cass?
Aye.
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 Becky?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Completed that. Board reports with possible action. Curriculum is up first.
Oh, boy. We had a full meeting.
Yeah, it was good today.
The first thing that we talked about was any changes in the 620 policy with the parent that came in last month requesting credit for a class. We reviewed the policy and found there were some changes to be made, which we forwarded on to the policy committee, and they'll be
Reviewing it.
executing those through the policy committee. But in that process, we investigated what other schools did in the area. We also talked to the accredited institution that gave the class to find that it wasn't an accredited class.
It wasn't an accredited? Okay.
It's the professional grade classes are accredited, and that and so we took that information, and on top of that went and looked at other schools and whether other schools in the state of Minnesota had given credit through a K through 12 school, had given credit for that class or any other classes, and they had not, except as part of the PSEO. So, so we found that we didn't need to change the policy considerably.
Just needed to have some additions.
Yeah, we have some additions that you can cover when you
Yeah, yep.
make the policy. Anything else to add on that, Mike?
No, we just, we will be notifying the parent, in a letter, as well as to some more detail as to, some of the information that was shared with us as to why that credit, a little more detail as to why, that credit won't count for us, for the school. And obviously they can still appeal to MDE. And if we hear differently, by our interpretation as to why we won't accept that credit. And if we hear differently, we obviously will, follow that appeal process through MDE. But we feel with the information we gathered from CLC and from the diving school and our interpretation of the class that was taken, and we feel that that credit would not count.
Because every class, everything that a student gets credit for, it has to be accredited and it has to be taught by certain standards, and there is some.
So if that class is offered at the college level, like you were saying PSCO, they would take it through like CLC or something. Obviously, it's a different class structure.
A lot of things changed a few years ago with the accrediting process. Department of Higher Education changed the rules. You have to have, for example, our people even had to change, we just can't have a master's degree person. You had only so many years to get you have to have a master's plus 18 in that field to teach the course.
Okay.
So years ago, you could just have a master's degree and teach a PSEO, a CIS class here. You now have to have a master's plus 18 in that field. So a few years ago, you could teach something in a master's and get credit for that CIS course here. That changed a few years ago. And for example, that course was in that catalog a few years ago at CLC. They no longer teach that at CLC anymore either.
Sure.
Because that course doesn't fit the Department of Higher Education standards.
Yeah.
So that's one reason.
Sure.
Plus the course doesn't fit, the course that the student took doesn't meet the criteria either. So there was a few different reasons.
It's not the same class.
No.
It was a certification rather than the maybe
Right,
history.
certification class versus a CIS course.
Okay.
And what we recommend really to all parents is if your student is going to take a class and you want them to have credit for it, go talk to Jason and get pre-approval.
Yes.
That's
Bring it
the
up.
only sure way of knowing
Yes.
that you're going to get credit before paying for it.
Yep.
And
Anything outside this.
that was one of the items we added in that policy.
And the other thing that we added in there too, even though when we do it, for example, a student in 8th grade, 7th grade, or 8th grade may be taking an algebra class. We would give credit for that student, but it didn't say that in the policy. We added that in the policy as well. We would do that, especially one of our own students, or somebody coming to us and say an 8th grader at Pequot Lakes had
Took a
Algebra.
math class.
Yeah, because obviously if you're at that level and you already took the course, you would earn that course credit. but it didn't state that in that policy, and we added that as well. Just to clarify, but we may, if we get a different interpretation from MDE, we'll do different, but I believe we interpreted it right.
And then the other request from that parent was the driver's ed credit. And we looked at the schools in our district, all 25, and 3 of them out of the 25 offer it as part of the school curriculum. All the rest offer it in community ed.
The ones, just out of curiosity for me, the ones that do offer it, the 3, do they offer it as a full credit or is it like a fourth of a credit?
It's a fourth of a credit.
Fourth of a credit. There's
That's
some
what I
of them put it in with a mechanic, a car
Okay.
mechanic
Yep.
kind of class to get a half credit.
And then it falls into quarters, so then
Yeah.
it's pairing it up
Yeah.
with other quarterly classes.
And
We don't have anything at this point run as
No.
quarters, so that.
No.
and then 2 schools that did have it just changed over and put it into community ed because they feel it's not a graduation requirement. It just doesn't match what we should be paying teachers for. And it's harder because we have to get a qualified teacher and be under the teacher contract to do it as a accredited class. So we decided, hey, we're just not going to change that.
And I'll add to that too, everybody. It's hard to fit it into the schedule with who teaches the course. Sometimes it fits really nice with who teaches it and who in your system. For some situations, it might fit really nice if a PE teacher and your health teacher does it and it ties in with a health class. For us a few years ago, we had to tie it back in because we were short music, and that's when Mr. Freelove did it. We needed Mr. Freelove to teach music because we were short music. A lot of times you don't have the luxury to tie it in with who you have, and then when you build it into a schedule, and all of a sudden that person retires or leaves your district, and then you can't build it into the schedule because maybe your teacher that goes and gets a certification is a science teacher, and you can't fit that science teacher into the schedule to teach the class. So it's very hard to build it into a schedule, and that's why it's just much easier as a community ed class too.
I'll be honest, I was probably one of the biggest whiners about when we switched it out of being a class because it had been for so long. But when you look at the numbers and the schedules and everything behind the decision, there was no other decision to make.
Yeah.
I mean,
At the time.
yeah, and to this day, I don't think.
In fact, 2 of the schools don't even have it in their community ed program because they couldn't find any teachers in their community ed program to do it. Wadena outsources it to a driving school because they don't have a teacher that wants to do it. So it's tough. It's just one of those things, but.
Let's see, the next item that we talked about was the Sourcewell staff development days during the summer. They have 2 days of training in August. It's a great event where they bring in national speakers and really talk to the teachers about not only motivation for the year, but also, hey, here's what the latest thinking is on these subjects. And so far we have 25 teachers signed up for that, which is a great number. And we pay the teachers 2 days of salary for going to that. And all of the administration is going. So it'd be great to hear what comes out of that program.
I'll correct that. It's not salary, it's staff development.
Staff development, yeah.
They get paid, we pay them
Right.
at 10, but it's not their salary rate.
It's not their salary rate, staff development.
They do get a little something,
Thanks.
but they're giving up 2 days of their
Summer.
summer vacation to go and listen and learn, so it's great for them to do that.
And the other thing I had was Aubrey and Brett had put together a program for a teacher academy during the summer for getting teachers Google certified. so that they can be more effective in the classroom and managing, because we're now always going to have this online platform going. And the benefit of that is the teachers will be more effective. But also, if we get a good group that are Google certified, there's some benefits to that. You get some benefits from Google. We're using staff development dollars to pay the teachers, and it's 90 hours for each teacher, which is $1,200. So far, we have 18 teachers that are signed up for that, which is also a decent number because that'll just grow from here. So teachers are anxious to get better qualified onto that platform. Next item was the STAR data, MCA data, which it's been a tough year, right? It's been a tough year. But what I want to do is pass out some detail. Can you do this for me, Dave? Unfortunately, I've got two separate things here. So
You want?
yeah, pass that out too.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
In general, we did okay in grade school. Because we were primarily in school full-time, and we did pretty well in high school. What suffered was middle school. We don't yet have the statewide numbers in yet to see if the rest of the state, that's a whole different subject there, so. So we can't really compare, hey, is our results typical in what happened in Minnesota this year, or whether we're really bad or really good compared to Minnesota. The hard part is that that kind of information doesn't help a teacher. So what helps a teacher is going through and being able to see the information. Yeah, you took my last sheet. Going through and seeing student by student what's going on. So here's what we're looking at. If you look at our goals for this year, and you look at the thing I roughly circled, we wanted to have teachers to move 25% of all students that are below meets up to meets. 25% of those, we wanted them to move up a level. And so this data is now showing, hey, how did we do with that goal? Which you look at and you see bottom right in reading and math, it's first grade up through on the upper left is 8th grade reading and math. And you can see the numbers of kids that went from does not meet to partially meets, or does not meet to partially meets, or partially meets to exceeds. And you can see that we have had movement of kids up. And the total movement is 30, 40. Some of them you see like 3rd grade reading, only 11. Well, you know that's not 25%. But some of the others, we could be close. But Dave and the committee are still analyzing this to give us those final numbers. But looking at it in brief, I'd say, hey, the 1 through 4, the numbers don't look so bad in general. But you look at 5th through 8th, except for like reading 7 and math 8, hey, we're doing something right there. We got a lot of kids that moved up a level. And so you take this and you go, that's how we can address the kids that have a high need. And this is individual kids we're talking about. So we know who they are, we know how they're proceeding. And then if you look at the next page, we also have to look at the kids that are already meeting or exceeding. And going, hey, how many of our kids that exceeded again? How many went from exceeded to meets, or went down, or exceeds to partial, or exceeds to question? How did we do as far as addressing those excelling students? And you can see that we have very few. Problem is we don't know how many kids were in each class, in each of these. But this also gives the kids, the teachers, information about those excelling students, how I need to address their needs. And how do I keep them where they're getting a full year of education and not just slipping back into meets because I'm not challenging them enough.
And we do seem to have just a bit of a slide,
Seems like there's,
which I thought it'd be worse, to be honest, so.
so those are two really great ways of looking at the data rather than the overall test scores.
Yeah, and the way Dave, how you plan to summarize it is way more, I don't know, acceptable for me and you to look at than a whole spreadsheet of numbers. And it's more helpful to the teachers versus handing them a piece that shows them a poor number, but there's also more to that, like how much was the student offer, how many actually did improve, so.
And then if you drill down from that all the way to, you have to get to individual students. That's the separate sheet. Is you see the red does not meet, the yellow is meets some of the criteria. Blue is meets criteria, green is exceeds. And
And
you
that's
can
divided in half, Mr. Euban, reading on the left side and then math on the right.
Because I'll be honest, I read it straight across and was like, that kid really stepped up its game in the spring and went from a yellow to a blue.
Yeah, I drew a line, so to help with that, but it probably didn't get on the copies.
It did, I just didn't pay attention to it.
But you can see then, like, there's no, the names have been taken off this.
Yeah.
The third student down started out where he met, and now he only meets some in reading and English. And that same student went from some to not meeting at all in the spring, this last one. So it gets down to an individual level where are we having problems? You can take this information and then on the STAR site actually see where the student's deficiency is, what concepts they missed, and why they didn't meet criteria. And then you can see some real heroes where, second from the bottom, they were in trouble but ended the year meeting expectation in math and exceeding in English and exceeding in math.
And this is my being, whatever. I'd be interested to know when that adjustment came, when they came back to school.
Yeah,
Right.
Well,
and
in person.
that's been a bunch of it too. How many times have they all been quarantined?
Yes.
Yeah, because some, like in grade school, we had a class that was quarantined,
Yeah.
came back from quarantine, 2 days later,
They were.
they took the test.
Yeah.
So that's going to affect things, but we can't use those as an excuse we got to look at the individual kids.
Yeah.
And then address the needs of the individual kids with individualized learning.
So is this individual kid, is this for every single kid in the school?
Yes.
You guys can benchmark it and see
Yep,
exactly.
I have a large packet, I'll be sharing kind
Yeah.
of with the district leadership team tomorrow. But yeah, we have those for each grade and each K, so K1 do that early literacy test as well, but for sure 2 through 8.
And we will have it for the MCA, but that's still all confidential and we
Yeah.
can't
They don't release it.
share that at this point by state law. So I really think this is a really great way of looking at the information that is going to be usable for us, the teachers, and have benefit to the students. That's it. Then we also had a science curriculum review, which Dave is going to share some details, but we had in his talk, we had 3 curriculums piloted, and we had a teacher from each grade K through 4 on the evaluation team that piloted the various ones. Maybe Dave, I'll let you talk about it and I'll add in what my conclusion was as well.
Sure. So yeah, believe it or not, there's still more stuff. I'm gonna just touch on my 5 things very quickly and then I'm gonna turn it over to our 2 guests. So testing wrapped up, like you said, you've heard the results, still looking at all that, analyzing it, and what does that mean? You know, the question I have on the back page of my presentation for the district leadership team is what does it all mean? You know, how do we tie that back and look at every individual student and what it means for those students? So that's the real challenge. What does that mean and how does that align for our system and how for those individual kids? Math Masters, I'm happy to present tonight. We had 3 teams go to 5th grade Math Masters. Last time I talked about 6th grade Math Masters, we had 3 teams that were on the 5th grade Math Masters. They went out to Camp Gym to do this virtually. The 3 teams were in different spots. It was just an amazing day. And I'm happy to report that our team won. Our first team got 3rd place out of 26 teams. So Mr. Mortensen will be presenting this with the kids tomorrow. And then individual results, I have several ribbons here. I listed the individual results. We had kids, it's divided up into fact drills and then problem solving, and then there's a team round. And so we had several kids do really well individually. Fact drill, we had Oliver Espy get 1st out of 119 kids, Andrew Parrish 2nd out of 119, Maddox Vandermeer 5th, and Maximus Personius got 6th. So out of 119 kids, we had 4 kids in the fact drill that were in the top 5. And then in the problem solving part, Maximus got 2nd, Oliver got 3rd, and Vincent Metz got 9th. And those were all part of that team 1. Team 2 got 11th, and team 3, which had 2 4th graders on it, got 10th. So some good things coming up there in math, you know, just gotta keep working on it. Science pilots concluded, as Mr. Euban said, just a great effort on behalf of those elementary teachers. They put in a lot of extra time piloting something that, you know, 2 of the 3 curricula we didn't even purchase. So they introduced the lessons and they did it with fidelity like we asked, and they came together and they presented their case saying, well, here's why you should buy the new FOSS, and then we talked about it, and we came to consensus. So we'll be purchasing building blocks. We're still in the negotiations phase. That quote came in quite high, but for a 6-year, yeah, shocking. But for a 6-year science curriculum, K-5, it's going to have a lot of stuff. And then I've got on the schedule for August 30th, I have 4 hours of PD set up for those teachers already, K-5 science. And then we have a member from that same committee. We have teachers coming in to do unit planning starting already next week. And then they're being led by Beth Strite and Caitlin Rondo, and the other middle school teacher is, help me out, Heather Cadis. And they're all coming in, and we'll have a really nice snapshot of Science K-8. So some really good things going on there.
And Dave, let me just interrupt. I just want to say, I went to that meeting where they evaluated the various curricula and saw how the team did it. And this is the right way to do curricula, where you do a pilot program and you have all the teachers involved, all the grades, and you take this pilot and you have a fair evaluation. You take and have the criteria set ahead of time. Here's how we're going to evaluate each of these curricula. And then you have everybody come together and make the decision. And because they had buy-in on the process, all grade levels participated, and the decision was unanimous in the end. And some of the outcomes, the demonstration of outcomes, were just amazing on the parts of a bug. You know, when you present it one way versus you have a bug in class. It was mind-blowing. The difference of how the kids grabbed the information and related to it and really engaged in it in a very demonstrable way in how they could draw a bug and name the parts.
And that was
So-
kindergarten.
Pardon?
And that was kindergarten.
That was kindergarten.
Yeah.
Like
And-
the sponges of Betty.
Yep.
Yeah. So a great thank you to Beth and her team, the rest of the team. They put in a lot of extra work on this, but it was really worthwhile.
Yeah. It
And
was awesome.
thank
The
you.
only thing that would have been better is if we would have had started at the beginning of the year.
Yes,
done it
we
a whole
only
year.
had
Just perfect segue, just real quickly, the other areas that are working next week in curriculum writing are listed there. And then Mr. Malmberg pointed out with those test results that Mr. Euban talked about, Mr. Malmberg pointed out today in the curriculum committee meeting, that the direction we are going with the standards work that has been done before I came here, and now the elementary standards-based leading or standards-based reporting committee is coming in and spending 4 or 5 days working on taking those standards and doing personalized learning. So you take a look at, like you talked about, Mr. Grimsley, taking a look at those individual results, and it's about moving each of those kids. So if we can move to that personalized learning approach, and again, you have some great teachers leading that cause. So I'm really excited to see what happens there. And a great segue when Steve talked about, Mr. Euban talked about doing a pilot, right? I have 2 guest speakers here tonight, Holly Thome and Johanna Rudvik. We were approached with an opportunity to pilot a program from MDE that was an intensive remedial reading program called Hill RAP or Hill Learning Systems. And I read through it and I thought, this is really going to be intense, but I know Holly will maybe do this. So I went to Holly. Holly and I have worked on a lot of dyslexia stuff together, kind of looking at how do we look at, helping kids who are struggling reading, which is a passion of mine. It's my background before I came here. And Johanna and her jumped in and did an ACP project. So I want to turn it over to them, and they'll finish up my report for me. This is another really good example of how you do a pilot, and the work that they've put in is absolutely commendable. So I'm going to hand it over to Holly and Johanna.
Can I tie into something too on that? Now, when we take the personalized learning plan and you look at your data piece that you had, one of those kids might be that red intensive kid in reading. And that kid may be a special education student,
Right.
or may be suffering from dyslexia or something like that, or have an issue where now you have a student who has an issue. Now we have a training or a situation where when you have the personalized learning, might be a student that now you can take something like this or have training like this. You got your personalized learning plan, and now you have an intervention that helps that student or a student with situations like this. Now it's where you have a connection with somebody who's got some training or that can help another teacher or something like that. So now you build the training of your staff and your interventions. So I just wanted to, while you're doing the STAR assessment, to see why that kid is struggling or what's the training, or while you're doing the assessment, tying the personalized learning, now you're looking at the other side of it, the interventions piece of it, and the background that you two are doing. So take it away. Thanks, ladies, for coming.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us. And
You guys you want to take down your mask so
Thank you.
that you can hear and everybody, you're fine right now. So
thanks for Dave for finding this, because this has been a very cool program to get to pilot that we both really enjoyed. So as he said, it's called Hill Learning, and it's actually an Orton Gillingham program, which is a dyslexia program. If you could click to the next slide. So it's a program that provides us educators with a research-based, individualized, structured approach to helping students learn how to read. Something that we've really liked is that it goes with the 5 key areas effective with reading instruction, which is phonics, phonemic awareness, fluency, reading comprehension, and vocabulary. And then it also expanded into writing, which is, we found it very helpful as well to tie right back in with it.
The benefits are it's adaptable. It can move from the classroom to our online distance learning, which was very helpful during our quarantine times with our students. We could very much interact with them in any kind of area. Monitoring, it tracks individual student delivery time and progress through the program. We can get very detailed reports at any time. The audience, it is able to provide services for students with dyslexia, and they don't have to be identified for this. All of the students that we work with have some form of learning disability with reading, and that has very much helped them. And those that struggle with foundational reading skills. And it was amazing as we got into this program, the things, oh, they definitely have this. You go back, they don't have this. They're very much lacking in areas where some of our students, I work with 3rd and 4th grade students, and some of them had to go back to kindergarten level skills that they had missed. And it was amazing, you know, you just thought, I mean, when we started doing it, I said, oh my, they will fly through this. Wow, we need to back up. We need to go back and we need to work on those basic foundational skills that they were absolutely missing. And that was very much, in fact, holding them back. Differentiate student placement in the curriculum. So I can be working with 3rd grade students, one that's reading at a kindergarten level, and I can work with one that's reading at a 2nd grade level. And it's very much can differentiate in the small group.
That's been very helpful during our time where we're trying to keep contamination smaller. So I've been able to pull kids at different levels from one class and have a group that way, instead of always having to meet at the same level like we would have to do for other interventions. As she said, it has amazing data. It keeps track for us how the students are doing, and then it shows us that data later so that when we go back to analyze it, we can then add drill questions that are personalized for that learner. So as much as it collects the data, it's great then it's easier for us to go back and analyze, helping with our prep.
The training, we were very fortunate. We did find this program and it was offered to us as a pilot, but if we were to go and pursue it ourselves, it would cost upwards of $3,500. But it's a 20-hour online course homework. As Dave has mentioned a few times, there were a few times when he came to us, we're like, not now. We don't want to talk about it, you know, because it is very intense. And it was a 10-hour online course for phonological awareness. There was a 10-hour online course that outlines the Hill-RAP methodology. There was a 6-hour synchronous webinar in which we learned how to use the app. So before we could even do anything with our students, we had to go through all of that. It was a 2-companion 10-hour self-paced online course. So it was just, we had to go through it. Once you master this one, it just kept leading us down a path that prepared us for the strategies. And then there was a 90-minute online interactive webinar to address the questions from all the trainings. And then we had to also get introduced to the spelling module, which I really wish we would have that from the get-go, because that has been one of the most eye-opening experiences for me. Because the first thing they ask you, draw the letter capital J, and my kids go, wow, that's amazing to me. They didn't understand, they're just looking at me going, what do you mean? And I said, draw J. And what's really neat about the program is they can draw it and they submit it to me and I see exactly what they wrote. So then I can go back and reteach whatever needs to be done there. And then observations, we have to submit observations. Normally they, in a regular year, they would come and observe us, but in this year we had to record ourselves and submit it.
Another thing that's been really eye-opening is just their holes and their misconceptions. So like she said, those students that don't know the differentiation between upper and lowercase letters as well. So it's been interesting to